Hello.
Hey, is this Michael?
It is.
Hey, Michael, this is Dustin from KMSU here in Minnesota. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's great to be speaking with you. Thanks for taking the time out with us today.
No problem.
Well, I'll introduce you here to my co-host, Ton.
Hey there, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Todd. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm happy to have you on the line. We are ready to go if you want to get started.
Sure.
Well, I guess you grew up in Minnesota. Where are you from?
I'm from southeast Minneapolis.
Awesome. So not too far.
Dinky Town.
Yeah, Dinky
Town.
Dinky Town. Wow.
That's where I'm from, man.
Wow. Awesome. I've been to Dinky Town a couple times. So talk to us about I guess growing up there and how that led to playing music.
Wow.
How
I guess the two correlate. Yeah, sure. My dad moved the family up to Minneapolis from Louisiana, from a place called Okaloosa, Louisiana. I'm the only son, 3 sisters older than me, and my dad moved the family here to complete his PhD in science. So, as you know, Dinkytown, there's a lot of students because the campus is right there. So I guess I was around mostly. I guess smart folks mostly. Professors. A lot of my friends had dads who were professors or involved in education in some way, shape, or form. And I guess the music thing just sort of, it's not a non sequitur. I mean, my dad played piano and organ in church, for most of his life. That didn't necessarily guarantee it. I tried playing like a baritone, like a small tuba, when I was probably about 7. And I didn't like it very much. It's like a small tuba. I'm a 7-year-old. I'm dragging this thing back and forth from school during the winter, and it didn't really take. So, one of the neighbors, I get well, let me not skip. I'm playing around in the backyard, and I hear music coming from one of the houses. And it's a pretty safe neighborhood, so I just kind of wandered down the alley and into a neighbor's backyard. It was probably the sound. And there was this rock band practicing. They were playing like Aerosmith or something, like Sweet Emotion. And in that part of in that area of Minneapolis, you can look through like a storm window or something and look into people's basements sort of from the outside. And the drummer was set up like right underneath a window, immediately. And I would wander into that yard whenever I heard the band playing, and I would watch the drummer from up above, looking from the side of the house. And one time, one of them came outside to have a smoke or something, and they caught me in the yard. And they invited me in, and I got to kind of see what it was like the musicians hanging out and playing music and how they related to each other, and they'd let me sit behind the drums and see how they worked and everything and so on and so forth. And I just got really interested. My dad got me a kit when I was probably, I guess, when I was 9. But I had to take lessons was the condition upon keeping it. So a gentleman named Floyd Thompson taught me through high school. And, I joined the band program. Dennis Malmberg, shout out to Dennis Malmberg from South High. He encouraged me a lot. I met the right people along the way. I was really fortunate, man. I didn't have a lot of equivocation in my life. Like, once I decided I wanted to do music, the die was cast. Nobody could tell me any different. And, and that was hard for me because I came from an educated family, and my dad chose education over music in his life, ultimately. And he figured it was a rational decision for me also, but I disagreed, and that disagreement continued for the next 3 years until Brent called the house, the family home. And then he didn't bother me about it anymore.
Yeah, that was, growing up around that area during that time, not just Prince, but you had the guys from The Time and, the Replacements and, Janet Jackson making albums here. I mean, a lot of stuff was coming out of that area.
That's right. As a matter of fact, I'm in Soul Asylum. It took me till 2004 or 5 to join Soul Asylum, but Carl and Danny went to Marshall U High with my sisters. So it's like the energy was always rubbing up against, each other, but it took all the way until 2004, 2005, man. And then I find out, they're like, hey, you from Southeast? I was like, yeah. Me and Carl, we went to Marshall U High. Is your sister Sandy Bland? Like, yeah. Your sister Sybil, your sister Carla. Oh, yeah, we knew those guys. They were in classes with us. It's like, well, why did it take so long, man?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's cool to have that connection later on. And we'll get more into Soul Asylum, but you mentioned it briefly. Talk to us about that. So you said just how did that happen? Randomly, Prince calls your house. How does he know about you? How did you get hooked up with him?
Well, when I was 16, somebody, I guess it was Nuke Capay was the local big time music instrument dealer. It was a store over in Uptown, and I had been kind of hanging around there with some friends of mine, and it was me and this dude named his name was Nathan Pate. They just called him Nate Pate. Really great guitar player, great musician. We were in band together at school, and we just take the bus from South High, and we go over and just kind of put a little age and action on like a lot of new instruments, and then they took us out. Hey, put that guitar down. It's used now. Let that thing alone, chasing me out the drums. We'd go, and they had a drum contest. It was called the Twin Cities Best Drummer. This is 1986. And John Haga, Bongo Johnny, who was the guy who worked at the store, he said, hey, why don't you in it, man? You might do all right. And so I did, and I got first place. And that's where I met Bobby Vandell, superstar drummer from Minneapolis, Minnesota, who introduced me to all the members of Dr. Mambo's combo. And I ended up subbing for Bobby until I eventually took over the gig. And that's where I met Prince, at Bunker's Music Bar and Grill. 761 Washington Avenue, South, downtown Minneapolis.
Wow.
That was 1988. So, like I said, once I decided it's really what I wanted, things just started moving, really.
Well, that must have been, a bit intimidating for you around that time when you joined, Prince. I mean, being that young and the fact that he was really kind of, starting from scratch with the new power generation. And, that was a interesting time in his career for sure.
Well, he knew what was going on. I didn't really. I was very naive. When he called to offer me the job, I was going to Augsburg University over on the West Bank. And I remember asking him, I said, well, will I be able to finish my fall semester? And he just started cracking up. It's like, you're probably going to be too busy for that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it was a bigger deal than I realized. I mean, I didn't know anything. I've never been to a Prince concert. I wasn't old enough, and the general culture, even though he comes from Minneapolis, you talk about a person who's a complete free spirit and a very kind of what's the word? Reserved sort of, the people a lot of people in Minneapolis, the normal folk, are really just very reserved folks. So for Prince to be some sort of a byproduct of this environment, is really strange in and of itself. You know what I mean? Like with the Minnesota Nights and all that.
Yep.
So I didn't really, I looked at him, it's weird to say this, but when I was 16, because we were both a product of the same environment, I looked at him like a peer. I didn't know enough about him or his impact on the outer world to be intimidated. As my own ignorance saved me from being starstruck, if that makes sense for you.
Yeah, wow.
So, because I approached him like a regular person, he took to me different. Rather than, I didn't freak out. I knew I was good, but I was going to get better. And the fact that he took an interest was also, stimulating to me, but I didn't really know what I was in for, man. It's like you think you're taking a boat ride and you're getting on a rocket ship instead.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's really interesting. You were able to develop kind of a different connection with him. What was it?
Right.
I mean, do you remember? Like this is around the time where he's changing a lot. He's changing from Revolution to New Power Generation. There's member changes, things happening, whole sound change, all of that. I mean, was that all just like so new to you that you didn't really take it in, or is there anything that sticks out that was like, whoa? Or I guess maybe even were you a fan at that time? Did you love Purple Rain and then realize?
No, I really wasn't. My friends were always coming by the house, playing me his music, or in high school, and I was exposed. But for some reason, it didn't hit me. I had to listen to more of his music beyond that, and in a different space, I guess. It didn't really hit me. I was not a huge fan, but I was aware of what he was doing. But it just didn't. I don't know, man. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, crazy.
It was music that wasn't beyond my understanding, but I didn't know that would be the asset. That's the part that helped me stay for as long as I did. Is that what I heard from him, I got, but I didn't really understand the brilliance of it until I understood more of what makes music brilliant when it is brilliant. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. You were learning on the job, man.
I was learning on the job, but what he taught me was about the entire galaxy and what music is.
Sure.
And then I could see his place in it and really appreciate his contribution. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, wow. So can you share with us kind of that stuff, like a little bit of that? What was it like in studio? Like how much was he instructing you? That sort of thing. Were you just like on call constantly, or how did that all work?
Yeah, to work for Prince was like working for the fire department. Anytime a fire broke out, you just had to get the suit on and shimmy down the pole. So, yeah, he'd call and I'd go.
What was the dynamic as far as, he was obviously a drummer. He was an everything, Is that, knowing that the guy that you're working with could, easily do these parts himself, does that help your playing, or does it make it stressful, or how's that dynamic in the studio, him being so prolific like that?
It strengthens the communication, actually. If your ego can take being corrected, and you're really there to move forward and be a team player, so I didn't have any conflicts. He could ask me to play anything. Sometimes I'd be hesitant because even to this day, I don't like making mistakes. The first time I put my hands down, I want to know what it is I'm trying to say. And that can stand in the way of your creativity, really, because music, I forget because I don't look at music like art. Music is like my life, man. But music is a subjective study to a large degree. Like, you have to really just kind of let it come out the way it wants to come out. And then how you frame it later on, maybe, is the objectivity. But music wants to just come to the surface and be. And Prince taught me a lot about that. I still have my own way of looking at it and trying to refine how I say it. But he was the one. I'd be in the studio, he'd say, just do this instead. And 2, 3. And sometimes I wouldn't come in right away. He'd go, what's wrong? Put your hands down. Once you find the city, you can find the street. Just put your hands down and play. Let it happen. So he taught me a lot about trusting myself and also just trusting my, I guess reason to be. Really, I don't mean to get all over there, but just be it, man. Just play whatever it is, whatever you feel, wherever you are. Just, and so the studio process could be cathartic, but also nerve-wracking because I'm a perfectionist. I don't want to, to this day, certain songs will come on and I'll hear places where I didn't like what happened or I messed up, and that's fine. Just leave it. And it still causes me anxiety sometimes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, there were so many, everybody thinks of, Purple Rain and that kind of era, but you guys did so many great albums, when you were with him, and it must have been great, as a drummer to have all the live horns back in the fold. I mean, he was really going kind of back to the old school during that time.
Oh yeah, Definitely. As a matter of fact, God bless the Hornheads, the NPG Horns, because I was starting my own band kind of with a friend of mine at the time, during my time off. And I had met these three horn players, which were Brian Gallagher, rest in peace, Mike Nelson, and Steve Strand, who was up there at Stillwater. And I was working with these guys already. One day, Fitz walks in while I'm getting ready to do something at Paisley. He says, "You should have a horn band. You should play all like the Madhouse stuff. You should play this and that. You should play some, like Tower Power. You should have a horn band, man. You should run your own band." And I went, "Okay."
Sounds great.
I know three guys right now, and he said, "You're going to need five." And he turned around and he walked out. So Mike Nelson calls Kathy and Dave Jensen. And that's how the original MPG Horns got together. He would get cassettes of our rehearsal daily. And then one day, he just comes down and he says, "Can they stay after and come in the studio?" And I was like, "Well, there goes my band." And so he just started putting them all on all that material. And that was in between, before we got ready to go out for the Diamonds of Pros tour. So he was recording with them, and they just became, he wanted to use them to everything. They ended up being on the recordings for the next record, and got the tour for the record before that. So they had a nice little run with him too. I mean, that's the real reason to be in music, is to be able to work with your friends. So it all worked out for everybody. That was a really bright time for us then.
Yeah, that sounds like because of that kind of music and going back to the old funky kind of stuff. I guess we can give you the credit for that. Then it sounds like.
Well, I mean, he had been and still used Eric Leeds often. Whenever Eric was willing to go out there and work with him, and continued to. And it's weird because I remember the first time I met Eric, I was like, wow, I wish he was then on doing something else entirely. So I met him at Paisley one day. I think he was working on one of the records he put out on Paisley Park. And I was like, when I was in high school, all I wanted to do was be in Madhouse, man. He's like, well, we could have got you in there, man. We could have used you.
Crazy.
Yeah, yes, it was when we got the horns, and he was able to. There's a lot of we played a lot of after parties that had songs that had a lot of horns in them, and they used to cover those horns with the keyboards, But once we got a horn section, it was just like Prince would just load it up, man, like he was a DJ. He just said, "Hey, learn these 10 songs, come in tomorrow rehearsal, and we're gonna mess with these." And so that's when it got like really good for everybody around, I think, because it was for him and like Sonny and Levi, it was like they got to play, extremely good cover versions of songs that made them want to play music, So we were playing the Ohio Players, we were playing, man, a bunch of stuff. BT Express, we were, just taking any horn band. All of a sudden, these after shows got to be, really like little, what's the word I'm looking for? Not time capsules, but I mean, if you, any bootleggers out there, they know what I'm saying. It's just, it became a different kind of party. We could play anything. We could play Earth, Wind, and Fire. We could play, the hits just kept coming.
Well, of course, Prince kind of mixed things up again in the late 90s, and I know you worked with him here and there after that, but was that always kind of in the back of your mind, I guess, knowing that Prince was kind of the guy that might just, completely reinvent himself and, change things up and, it could just end any day?
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, that was a reality that you faced on a daily basis. And when it finally happened, when he finally did actually let us go, and my initial reaction was anger, but I realized sometime after that he as much did me a favor. I couldn't stay there forever. I was still a young person. He fired me when I was 26. I'd been there since I was 19. I turned into some kind of man during those years, and I had to figure out who that was, musically and otherwise. So, it's ironic that the very next thing I did, though, was go on the road with Paul Westerberg, because that was was completely a non sequitur. It was a different attitude, a different kind of music, a different kind of intensity. So it's weird. Just, I mean, when I start to reflect during interviews like this, I start thinking about how come I've always been weaving back to working with somebody from where I'm from. And I spent a fair amount of time in Los Angeles and other places, but the work ethic is hard to beat in Minnesota. I don't know if it's because we have 6-7 months of winter and all you can do is practice and rehearse and write and like make music, or if it's some other, thing. But I've always, if I'm working with somebody from where I'm at, everything seems to just kind of come across better. It's a better situation for me. And it's a better situation for anybody if they're working with people who have the same mindset and the same goals, And just Minneapolis musicians take it serious. This is serious business for us coming from here. Dave Turner is a great American songwriter. I don't care if you like his music or not, but by measure of any song, Dave Turner is as good a songwriter as anyone. And actually, Prince was a fan of Dave's work. We actually covered a Soul Asylum song. It's in the vault at Village Park. It was a song called Stand Up and Be Strong. And I was doing a session for Prince. He said, how come that song wasn't a hit? I said, well, we were on a little label, and they didn't really have the promotional budget to move it like, somebody else could. But he was just like, that song's a hit. And he kept talking about it. He's like, you think Dave would mind if we recorded a version? I said, I don't think so. He said, well, can you ask him? Because I don't want to get into any legal situation with him later on. I'd like his approval. So I stepped out in the hallway out of Studio A at Paisley and called Dave. He's like, what? You want to record one of my songs? Yeah, definitely. And tell him he killed it on the Super Bowl. I said, okay, I'll let him know. So that's how it happened. That was a day in my life. Calling Dave Turner to ask him if Prince could cover one of his songs.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So Prince has passed on. He's no longer with us, and we now are in kind of a different era of this estate takeover and things being released from the vault. I imagine there's tons of albums that you've even worked on, I would imagine, still sitting in there. What are your thoughts on all that now?
It's hard to have any complete thoughts about it. I've been interviewed by this guy named Mobeen Azar. He's a reporter for the BBC. He flew all the way over here to interview some of us. He really was, he talked the BBC into giving him this feature about the vault and like what's in it. And, he was thinking that maybe they should release everything that's in there. And I kept trying to explain to him, I only stepped in the vault once. I didn't even step in the vault. There's a room before you go into the vault. And I was in that room, and it was where he used to keep all of the Grammys and the Oscars for Purple Rain, and a lot of the awards and feathers and it just looked kind of festive and decked out, like a very mystical looking room. And then there was this huge door, and they'd break the door and open the vault. I just stuck my head in the vault one time, and I just kind of looked around, and there was just rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of tapes, like nothing. And actually, there was also a couple of reels of film. They were just in a box on the floor. It's like, well, what's that? And the dude told me, "Oh, that's the movie they made, like Before Purple Rain. Before Purple Rain, Prince had tried shooting a film, and that I would like to actually see." That would be the only thing out of the vault that I could put an eyeball on that I'd actually want to, take a look at.
Crazy.
But I think the movie was supposed to be called The Second Coming, and I think in it, Prince had said something about he had shot a scene where Des Dickerson had tied John Green to a chair and was chastising him about something. I don't remember exactly, but he had shot some bizarre concert film with all these weird vignettes in it, and that I would hope to see. But as far as the work musically in the vault, I know for a fact that he didn't finish everything that he started. He couldn't. There were too many ideas, too many versions of other songs. And that's the other thing, is that a lot of what the vault is are versions of songs from before he decided how to best present them. Like, there are versions of When Doves Cry that predate the one that everybody's familiar with. You know, where maybe he just didn't, hadn't gotten there, like how he really wanted it to sound, or, you know, just songwriters. They do revised versions of their songs all the time until they're right, until they're in a form that they feel like everybody will be able to get. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of redundancy in the vault. And it would take somebody who was very familiar, you know. I heard that somebody said that Jimmy Jam wanted to be like, not the curator, but he wanted to, it's like, give me some of that music, I'll finish it. I would trust him. I would trust Terry. I trust Terry, but I trust Jimmy. But it would take somebody like that who had an intimate understanding of what Prince did, and also managed to take what they could glean from Prince and have their own success. He has insight into the process that a lot of people can't say that they do. I would trust Jimmy Jam for the state to give Jimmy Jam the ability and the access. I would trust that. But you're not going to just put the tape on and go, oh wow, listen to this Jim from, you know, that's a minimum of, you know, 16 to 24 tracks of only Prince would know what he actually wanted to do with it, you know?
Sure.
He'd have guys come in into town, just like really great mixing engineers. And sometimes they wouldn't be able to get their footing because there'd be instruments on instrument tracks. Like there'd be, at some point, like at the bridge, something else would happen. Because Prince would just overdub. He'd just put this idea because he only had 24 tracks to work with. So he started multi-purposing his tracks. So something would jump out of nowhere and they wouldn't be ready for it, you know? And essentially that's what happened on Love Sexy. He hired some guy to come in and the guy was like, I can't do it. I'm constantly surprised by things that just jump out of, only Prince knew when to bring in what. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't know what I'm even saying at this point. I'm saying it would take a real wizard, or at least a real wizard's apprentice. And if Jimmy Jam Harris isn't that, I don't know who is.
Yeah,
27 number one hits, Deanna Lewis, Lifetime.
Yeah, man.
Incredible.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, you mentioned, you know, sticking around Minnesota and playing with all these great bands, and you know, of course, you're with Soul Asylum now, and that's great that you've kind of landed in a band. It sounds like it's probably definitely less hectic than the new Power Generation. This is kind of just more of a straightforward project for you, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, for many reasons, though. I mean, it's not hectic schedule-wise, but anytime you're dealing with people in music who are really good at what they do, I don't want to say it's a psychosis, but as you would guess, Dave Turner he's a bright human being, and he's a very emotional person. And when you're trying to coalesce the vapor of things you're trying to get across, like from a mental or even on a visceral level, if you're very good at it, it's still very hard for you. And I think that's fair. I mean, Prince, his hairdresser told me one time that he would try to write lyrics all the time. She'd be doing his hair. And if a phrase wouldn't come or a word wouldn't come, sometimes he'd actually get up and just start yelling, and she'd have to like move the hot comb and the curling iron away from his head so that so that he wouldn't burn him. But he was so into it, and it was so. What we're best at should also be hard to do, is all I'm saying. And the same with Dave Turner. Whatever he's writing, he's trying to get to something, you know. And when people are in artistic pursuit, they're not focused on, like, conventional surroundings, you know. And so I guess the stress is a healthy kind of stress, but you got to know what's going on. You know, I mean, it's hectic just to work with music because you're battling time and circumstances that you can't see around you. You're trying to do something, and sometimes you're in your own way and you don't realize it. You know, it's urgent. It's hectic. We don't keep nearly the same kind of schedule, and we kind of do what we want. But the artistic process don't change for anybody. And the better you are at it, the more it can confound you and slip through your fingers.
What do you got up coming here, Michael? Is there something you're working on now that we should be watching out for?
Yes, we're just about to drop our second single from the new Soul Asylum album called Hurry Up and Wait. It's a song called If I Told You, and it's a tearjerker, man. I guarantee you're gonna play this one and you're gonna love this one. It should be out pretty soon. I wish I had the date on the tip of my tongue, but I don't. But we hit the road on February 11th with Local H. We're touring. We're going out east, and then we're coming back through the Midwest and across all the way out to Vegas and back in time for South by Southwest, like March, mid to late March. And right now we're out for like 5 or 6 weeks starting then.
Awesome. Well, Michael, again, we're big fans of your work, and it's been an honor speaking with you today. We appreciate the time.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I was so blasty. I didn't mean to talk your ear off like that, but thank you for the opportunity.
No.
Apparently, I needed to get it out. I didn't know.
No, it's great, man. We loved it. It was wonderful having you on.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. You guys take care of yourselves.
All right,
Thanks again. Have a great night.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.